Hare Krishna. We continue reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, Dhyan Yoga, text 9. Surin mitrari udasina madhyastha dveshya bandhushu sadhushva apicha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, the envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. So this is a person who is liberated. As we heard yesterday, that he's already reached the super soul. So he has understood that I'm a living entity, I'm a part and parcel of Krishna, and everyone else also is a living entity, part and parcel of Krishna. So he regards everyone as with an equal mind. He may deal with them in a different way, as is required for a different circumstance, but he has understood that they are all living entities and they are all eternally Krishna conscious. So he is not disturbed in mind by well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, neutral meditators, envious friends, enemies, pious and sinners. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitaha ekaki yata chittatma nirashir aparigraha. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So here Krishna is explaining to Arjuna about a Dhyan Yogi. A Dhyan Yogi is a transcendentalist, and what he should do, always engage body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He has to live alone. He should live alone in a secluded place. So not in a city, not in an apartment building, but in a secluded place, live alone, and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So this is how Krishna is saying a yogi performing Ashtanga Yoga should be. Krishna is realized in different degrees as Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna consciousness means concisely to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. But those who are attached to the impersonal Brahman or the localized super soul are also partially Krishna conscious. Why? Because the impersonal Brahman is the spiritual ray of Krishna, and the super soul is the all-pervading partial expansion of Krishna. Thus, the impersonalist and the meditator are also indirectly Krishna conscious. So we can see, as we just heard in Caitanya Caritamrta, that each and every living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna, whether be in the spiritual world or material world. Spiritual world directly engaging in Krishna's service, material world engaging in the service of Maya Devi, and those laws are made by Krishna. She's working under his direction. So no one can give up this, be at any point without service to Krishna. So now here, Krishna conscious means engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord. So it's a transcendental and it's loving. It's not material. It is not based on lust. Transcendental, spiritual, and is based on love. Now, there are certain class of transcendentalists who are attached to the Brahmajyoti, the light aspect of Krishna, or to the Paramatma aspect, the localized Paramatma. They are also partially Krishna conscious. They are also partially Krishna conscious. How? Because where is the Brahman coming from? The Brahman is the light coming from Krishna. And the Paramatma, who is the Paramatma? The Paramatma is an expansion of the Supreme Lord, partial expansion, all pervading. He's entered into every atom, every universe, every heart of every living entity as the Super Soul. Thus, the impersonalist and meditator are also indirectly Krishna conscious. So that's why we can see that the eternal position of every living entity is Krishna consciousness. That is our eternal position. And the sooner we come back to it, the better for us, because that is our original position. Thus, the impersonalist, a directly Krishna conscious person is the topmost transcendentalist, because such a devotee knows what is meant by Brahman and Paramatma. His knowledge of the absolute truth is perfect, whereas the impersonalist and the meditative yogi are imperfectly Krishna conscious. So a person who is directly engaged in the transcendental love for, in transcendental service for Krishna is the highest transcendentalist. Why? Because his knowledge is the most perfect. Why? Because he understands the position of Brahman. He understands what is the Brahman, what is the Paramatma feature, and he understands the absolute truth. He understands that the Brahman is the light coming from the absolute truth, and that he understands that the Paramatma is the all-pervasive feature of the absolute truth. And he understands that the absolute truth is a person. So his knowledge is perfect. And so he's perfectly Krishna conscious. He has understood that the absolute truth is Krishna. So he's perfectly Krishna conscious. Whereas the impersonalist and the meditative yogi, they are partially or imperfectly Krishna conscious, not yet in their original position of Krishna consciousness. Until the time a living entity, until the time a soul does not come to the point of perfect Krishna consciousness, the journey is not finished, still traveling, still in the journey. When we become perfectly Krishna consciousness, that is our original position. That ends the journey and begins our true life. That begins the true life, original life of the soul. It's not that after liberation, everything is dead. No, true life begins from the point of liberation. Original life of a living entity begins from the point of liberation. So nevertheless, all of these are instructed herewith to be constantly engaged in their particular pursuits so that they may come to the highest perfection sooner or later. So Krishna is saying, whatever path you're doing, just follow that. Just follow. Why? So that you can become perfectly Krishna conscious eventually. Eventually, you will become Krishna conscious. Why? Because that is the original position of every soul. Every living entity is originally Krishna conscious. The first business of a transcendentalist is to keep the mind always on Krishna. One should always think of Krishna and not forget him, even for a moment. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is called samadhi or trance. So the Ashtanga yogi, the highest stage of the Ashtanga yogi is samadhi. Samadhi on the lotus feet of Krishna, on the form of Krishna. And bhakti yogi, what is his first point? Concentrate on Krishna. So what is the highest in the Ashtanga yogi? The bhakti yogi starts from that point. Immediately, first, fix the mind on Krishna. Krishna says, hey Arjun, you fix your mind on me and then you do all your duties. He says that in chapter 9, text, which is that text 27 or somewhere there, that you fix your mind on me and then you do your duty. That is samadhi. That is trance. In order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion. So this now again, for the Ashtanga yogi, he should remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. So how is he going to do that? He has to go to the forest. He has to go to the forest, half close his eyes, and then He should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affect his realization. And in perfect determination, he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. So he has to go alone to the forest. Alone, go to the forest. Don't get disturbed by the external sense objects. As we were just hearing about the sense objects in the Sankhya philosophy of Kapila Shiksha in Bhagavatam. So don't let the eyes get disturbed by some form. Don't let the ears get disturbed by some sound like that. And then should reject everything that's unfavorable and accept everything that's favorable. Be determined. Don't get these artificial material desires, feelings of possessiveness. So this is what a yogi is supposed to do. Now, it's not easy for us to do this in Kali Yuga. The very first thing that you go alone to the forest, the very first thing we are not able to do. Where will we go alone to the forest? Our mind will be just disturbed. Is a snake going to come bite me, or will a tiger eat me? So now in Kali Yuga, what can we do? All these perfections and precautions are perfectly executed when one is directly in Krishna consciousness, because direct Krishna consciousness means self-abnegation, wherein there is very little chance for material possessiveness. So Krishna, that's the reason Krishna says, you first fix your mind on me. And how do you do that in Kali Yuga? You chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Lord Chaitanya gave us the easiest process. Lord Chaitanya gave us the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga. And see, he said, you chant the Hare Krishna mantra. You hear about Krishna. And this is the way you will fix your mind on Krishna. When your mind is fixed on Krishna, then automatically your attachment to the material world will go away, because your mind is fixed on Krishna. Automatically the senses and the sense objects won't trouble you. So Srila Rupa Goswami has said, Anashaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayunjataha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate Prapanchikataya Buddhya Hari Sambandhi Vastunaha Mumukshubhihi Parityago Vairagyam Falgu Katyate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 255 to 256. So Srila Rupa Goswami is explaining to us what is real renunciation. That when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time, he accepts everything for the service of Krishna, then he is rightly situated above possessiveness. So he understands that everything belongs to Krishna. So who am I to renounce anything? And so since everything belongs to Krishna, let me engage everything in the service of Krishna. So he is rightly situated. He is actually unattached. But on the other hand, if someone says, oh, not this, not this, not this, I give up this, I give up this, I give up this. His renunciation is not complete. Why? Because he's not understood the relationship of what he's saying, I don't want, with Krishna. He's not able to understand. It never belonged to him in the first place. Everything belongs to Krishna. That's the reason it's so important for us to understand the relationship of material energy with Krishna and our relationship with Krishna, our role in this material world, and how the material energy is helping us facilitate our desires here. A Krishna conscious person well knows that everything belongs to Krishna, and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. So we think, oh, this is mine, my house, my computer, my phone, my laptop, my whatever, mine. This is what we are doing. But a Krishna conscious person knows everything belongs to Krishna. Because who gave we may say, I bought it. I made money somehow or the other, and then I bought it from the store. But where did this thing come from in the store? It was made in the factory. Where did the factory people get the elements from? Oh, I found them. They were lying around. But who made these elements? It's Krishna. This material world belongs to Krishna. She is his energy. So as such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness and how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He's always aloof from material things because he's always transcendental and he's always alone, having nothing to do with persons not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is the perfect yogi. So here, Prabhupada is explaining to us that how, if we directly take up Krishna consciousness, then we can become the perfect yogi, rightly understand the relationship of everything with Krishna, and rightly become renounced. And that is to accept everything in favor of Krishna consciousness and reject everything unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. And he's always alone. Why? Because he's always associating with Krishna consciousness. He's always Krishna conscious. He's not associating with anything material. And so he's always transcendental. So he's a perfect yogi. Is that okay? So we are being shown practically how we can engage in yoga in this age of Kali, how we can become a yogi in this age of Kali. We are practically being shown that by hearing and chanting, following the regulative principles under the direction of the spiritual master, by following Krishna consciousness. Then we are rightly situated. So are there any questions or comments? No, then we'll stop here for today. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.